On this Mommy Monday this week, so many women are juggling responsibilities for work, for family, and still trying to carve out some time for themselves. Women with ADHD add another struggle on top of that, carrying that load, but there are some ways to help balance it. We are talking with Dr. Anna Burns, who is an executive functioning coach and the owner of Anna Burns Wellness, for some tips for any of you moms or parents who may find that you have ADHD. Thank you so much, Dr. Burns, for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, so adult women are the largest part of the population being diagnosed with ADHD right now. That is wild to hear. And, we say adult women. Why are we seeing these diagnoses at the adult level?
Because women tend to have a type of ADHD that's called inattentive type. So we are not the ones bouncing out of our seats that are immediately visible to a classroom teacher. We're the ones that look like we're kind of daydreaming, we're kind of lost in our own thoughts. And so we kind of fly under the radar of diagnosis. And then as we get older, as we have families, the demands on our brain just get so much more than we can cope with. And so that's when we decide to start seeking a diagnosis.
And that's going to be hard for, when you get the diagnosis at the adult level, because you've been, surviving, maybe not always thriving, but you've been figuring out how to make life work, right? And then I would imagine then we have kids and then things all kind of go all over the place after that, because then you have other lives to care for, not just your own, right?
Exactly, because ADHD affects the part of the brain that does planning, organization, time management, and all of those things. Once you start doing that for other people too, that's when a lot of women really start to have their symptoms really become bothersome. Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for some moms who may be listening right now and saying, wow, physical clutter around the house, trying to organize priorities, having 50 billion lists and not, accomplishing many on that list, or maybe struggling with dinner time. I hear from a lot of moms that dinner time is just complete chaos, and sometimes they just freeze up. They don't know what to do. What kind of advice do you have if they don't necessarily have a diagnosis, but there's some red flags going off as they're hearing this conversation?
Sure. I mean, first off is talk to a provider, first of all, and kind of start going down that diagnosis path to see if that's what's really going on. But really simple things like using visual calendars or schedules at home can be really helpful. Meal planning ahead of time, so you're not having to make all of those decisions at the very last second, because that's when our brains just go offline and we start making bad decisions for our families in terms of health and nutrition. And then also using things like technology, like use your apps on your reminders on your phone, your timers, things that will keep you on schedule and ahead of schedule. So that way you are then kind of providing that nice firm foundation for your families.
That's great. So, it doesn't necessarily mean medication is the end all be all if you do have a diagnosis, right?
Correct. Medication is one tool. And even though you have medication, that doesn't make it go away. It improves your focus, it improves your symptoms, but having all of those strategies that are ADHD friendly to help you make your routines, make your schedule friendly for your brain can be such a game changer. And so, many women actually don't want to use medication for various reasons, but having those strategies can really, really make a difference. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend looking at something like that to be helping with those day in and day out issues.
Absolutely. We need, and it's with technology and the internet, the resources are at our fingertips in terms of reading and really understanding what it is like to have a diagnosis with, ADHD, and reading up on that. And I did want to ask really quickly, what is the process like when you are diagnosed? What does that look like from there?
Typically, it is getting some sort of testing. It can be a neuropsych evaluation, a whole long battery of tests. It can be shorter tests that are done in an office with a qualified provider. And so once you get that diagnosis, you do have an option to do medication. You have options to do things like coaching. But I think having that diagnosis actually really helps provide almost a sense of relief, and now a sense of permission to start looking at how we can make our lives easier.
Yeah, because we want to be more present for our children and also be more present in our own body, right? Mentally, physically. It's so important that we make sure we're on the path to understanding ourselves so we can put our best foot forward for everyone else, right?
Exactly. Exactly. We take care of ourselves first, and that's how we take care of our families.
So important. And where can we find you if we want to learn more, Dr. Burns?
Sure. I am at Anna Burns Wellness. So AnnaBurnsWellness.com is my website, and I've got some free resources up there on meal planning and making routines that stick and time management. So if you're wondering if some of these might be helpful, go ahead and pop over there and go to the resources tab, and they're all there for free.
Great. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Dr. Burns. This is so helpful, and I really think this is going to help a lot of women out there. And by the way, another resource, we have Dr. Burns, an episode that was just released this morning on my podcast, Mommyhood Unscripted. We went into a deep dive on this topic. So if you or anyone that you know may be struggling a little bit with ADHD or you're curious to learn more about it, that's how you can find it. Scan that QR code now and subscribe today.